So obviously today's video is just a little bit more serious, so we're just going to be sitting here and talking like we're on FaceTime. So today I went in and I had my HSG test done. So for anyone who has never seen my face, my name is Kendriana, my husband's name is Wade, and we have been trying to conceive for the last 19 months. It was around month number 6 or 7 that I had suspicions that there was something wrong. It wasn't even based entirely off of the fact that like we hadn't conceived yet and we felt like we should have conceived by then. It was more so the way that my body was feeling, the way that my periods have always been, and there was a lot of other telltale signs that something was off, and so we finally consulted a doctor. I've had medical anxiety for as long as I can remember, and I absolutely hate going to the doctor. I had actually never been to an OB until March of last year. I am 27 years old, so it was definitely something that I should have done a lot sooner, but people with medical anxiety understand that sometimes it's just hard to do the things that we know we need to do. But in doing so, I got some very valuable information. Not only did going to the OB give me the push to get everything that I need to get done reproductively, but I also ended up getting a team of PCPs that are amazing. I have a dietitian now. There's all kinds of things that spiraled out of me going to the OB for the first time. I was diagnosed with 3 things altogether last year that are the most important, which was PCOS, pre-diabetes, and then I got the infertility diagnosis, which I did not think would happen as soon as it did, but it did. And I remember that exact appointment and just feeling so destroyed at it. But I know that the diagnosis of infertility does not mean that you're infertile. That is not what it means. It just means that there could be a slight chance that in the future, if you are trying to have a baby or you want a baby, that you're gonna need some help, okay? And I had to sit with that information for a while and realize that it is okay to need help. I feel like there's a lot of shame around things like IUIs and IVF and like taking medications to conceive. Like it's almost like we feel like we failed ourselves, and that's just not what it is. Like there's a reason that these things are open to us, and one of the reasons I was so scared to talk about this on public platforms is because when I would kind of like dip my feet into it and like start talking about it, I would always have people who were like, oh my god, like I did it naturally, it took me 6 years but I did it naturally, like you just need to stop going to the doctor, like put it all in God's hands, do it naturally. And it was so frustrating. I think some people don't realize that some of us just need the medical help, and that's okay. I needed the medical help. There were so many things that my doctors have helped me work on that aren't even just fertility related but just health related, so that I can be here for a long time, and I just needed the help, and that's okay. So today I finally went in for my HSG. If you did not watch my story that was kind of going into my fertility journey so far, I have tried to have this procedure 3 times now. The first time that I thought I was having it done, there was a miscommunication in what we were actually doing at that appointment. So I thought I was coming in to have an HSG done. Turns out I was coming in to have a transvaginal ultrasound done, which obviously is a completely different thing. And then we did a bunch of blood work during that visit. And then the second time, when I thought we were going to have it done, my insurance decided they were just not going to cover any of it, which they didn't cover any of it this time either. But we were under the impression that they were going to cover 70% of it. Turns out our insurance has decided they will not be covering anything fertility related, so all of those expenses will be coming out of our pockets, which sucks. I don't know what changed. I don't know if they're even able to decide they're just not going to do that. But yeah, that's where we're at. So I made the decision the second time around to not do the procedure, because at the time we did not have the almost $2,000 that they were quoting us to pay for the procedure. Like we just didn't have it laying around. And I think it was like the end of the year and like Christmas was coming up and all of the holidays, and it just wasn't feasible, on top of also making sure our bills got paid. This time around, praise be to God, we had the money and we were able to pay for the appointment, which I'm very, very grateful for. before, and so today I had my HSG. If you don't know what an HSG is, I'm going to put the exact name of it right here on the screen because it is a long word, but I'm going to go kind of into just how the procedure was, and I'm going to break this video down in parts. So I'm going to break it down into what I did to prepare before my procedure, what the actual procedure is, how it made me feel, or like how I felt during the procedure, and then the results that I got, and you know how I feel now that it's been 2 hours. So first of all, to prepare for my procedure, y'all, I watched so many TikToks, just so many TikToks of experiences from other women, and I will say that I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I like that I did it because I got some tips from them of how to like prepare for the procedure, but because I had watched so many videos and most of them were people saying that this experience was absolutely awful for them, because I watched so many, I went in already feeling so anxious and so scared, and it definitely reflected in the procedure because I was very, very, very tense, which I think contributed to making the pain of the actual procedure worse. Aside from doing copious amounts of research over on TikTok, I also took anxiety medication before I went in, which helped, I think, a lot, especially as I was sitting in the waiting room with my husband. Like, I wasn't having this like sense of just like panic and like, oh my god, we gotta go, we should cancel. I was just chill. I had my Kindle, I had my water, I was sitting there, I was reading. And it's weird because even when I'm going into the OB just for like a standard appointment, or like we're talking about next steps and we're not doing procedures like this, and we're not even like, you know, looking down there, I tend to be sitting in the waiting office very, very panicked and very just overridden with anxiety. So I think taking the anxiety medication definitely helped. Something that everybody always tells you, and your doctor will probably tell you the same, is before you come in, take pain medication. I am not gonna lie to y'all, I took 1,500 milligrams of ibuprofen and it didn't help. Like, that's just for me, just for me personally, it didn't help. I've seen girls say like, oh my god, taking the pain medications, it's the best thing I did, it helped so much. So I don't know, maybe it's like a person by person thing where like some people it does help, but then others it doesn't. But for me, it did not help at all. I still felt every bit of pain. Also, to prepare, like I said, I was a self-pay client, and so I went ahead and I paid all of the fees up front because I knew if I had the option to wait to pay those fees when I got there to the office. First of all, if you pay them up front, usually your doctor will give you a discount. I think for my actual OB's office, the original cost of it was like $582. If you waited to pay everything, like if you did a payment plan, you would only have to pay $150 up front, and then the overall total would be $582. But if you paid everything up front, they gave me an amazing discount of like $323 at the doctor's office, but that's just what you pay the OB. So you also have to pay a radiologist because with this procedure there is an x-ray involved, so you do have to pay the radiologist. The radiologist was the more hefty amount, and because of that we did decide to do a payment plan with the radiologist. Up front, I think we paid the radiologist $528. Overall it's like $1,678 or something like that. Like, it was a astronomical number. So that's why I'm saying, like, imagine my surprise when my health insurance said they were not going to help pay for any of it and we would have to pay that out of pocket. It was just crazy to me, but obviously we're going to do what we have to do to start our family. So I went ahead and I paid what I could 2 days before the procedure because I knew that if I went ahead and I paid it, it would be less likely for me to cancel the appointment. So that is another thing that I did to prepare. The night before, I also made sure I got a really good night's worth of sleep because I know me, and I know that if I do not get a good night's worth of sleep before something big like that, my anxiety is worse and I feel worse and I feel more panicked, I feel more scared. Like, I have to be well rested. So I got some great sleep. You also want to make sure that you're wearing something comfortable. So I just wore like an athleisure set. This is like one of the most comfortable sets I have. I wore fuzzy socks, which I call my lucky socks, and then I wore like a pair of my like slip-on Uggs. So I dressed really, really comfortably. 100% paid off. You definitely don't want to wear like a dress or like jeans or just something that's uncomfortable, because once the procedure is done, you are going to feel some discomfort down there, and you're going to feel it for like the rest of the day. So you don't want something that's like tight and constricting. And I'm going to tell y'all, okay, I know we like to wear a cute little underwear, whatever. This is not the time to do that. Wear the granny panties. Wear the granny panties and bring a pad. I am lucky that my OB's office, I think they've moved past like those big chunky pads that a lot of OB's office do. So I just got like a nice little thin pad. It's literally one of the same like pads that I use actually. It was thin, it was nice, and it wasn't big and bulky. But I've seen stories of girls who like, they got pads that were like this big. A lot of the girls were saying like, you don't want to be walking out of the doctor's office with like a moose knuckle because the pad is so big. So bring your own pad, because afterwards you will spot a little bit, and you'll also be like leaking the dye that they use for the procedure, and you don't want to ruin your underwear, you don't want to ruin your clothes. So make sure you have a pad, because I've also seen some girls say that the places they went to didn't even offer them pads, which is awful. I feel like that should automatically be offered for this procedure, but you never know what you're working with. So make sure you bring a pad. Okay, now we are going to move on to the procedure itself, because obviously that is the part that most people are interested in. So I don't want to say any of this to scare anybody. I think that I am more so saying the things I'm going to say as a way to prepare you and kind of put you in a mindset of what it's like. Because when I was looking for videos like this, people would talk about how painful it was, but they wouldn't talk about why it was painful or like what the causes of that was. So let's get into it. So first I get in there, first they have you sign like a bunch of different consent forms, a bunch of different waivers. You sign them at registration, and then you go back and you sign more when you're in the back of the room. They kind of go over like what the procedure is and what is going to happen. So this procedure is basically, your doctor is going to go in. It's going to feel a lot like a pap smear at first. So, you know, they're going to take the speculum, they're going to get you opened up, and then they're going to be placing in a catheter. So attached to this catheter is like a balloon. This balloon is meant to blow up your cervix so that the dye can get in there easier. And I am not kidding you when I say the insertion of the catheter was the most painful part by far. So many doctors will tell you that it's just like a mild period cramp. No. It was not a mild period cramp. It was like the most painful period cramp. Like I naturally, with like my PCOS, I get super bad period cramps. I get super bad period symptoms, period. And this was like nothing I've never felt before. This was, if I could compare this to the worst period cramp maybe I've ever had, it was that plus a little bit more. It was so uncomfortable, and I am so blessed because not only was the person performing the procedure like my OB, like it was my OB that I trust and I love, and I actually want to cry like thinking about it, because she walked into the room and the first thing that she said was, "All right, let's get this started, let's get you a baby." And that just made me want to cry, because that's the goal. Like, we do these things because that is the goal. But then I also had the sweetest, she was so kind, the sweetest nurse in there, and she could see that I was in immense pain because I was literally crying. I was crying. I was like gripping onto the sheet, like I was digging my nails into the sheets, and I was crying. And you know, like, she was wiping my tears away, she was rubbing my hair, she was asking me about like how me and Wade met and when we got married and what our wedding was like. Like, she was the sweetest angel, and I got so freaking lucky, because I've seen horror stories about people who, like, the nurses and the doctors just treated them awful, and that I just didn't have that experience. And I am very blessed. I am very grateful for that, because just having my doctor there and then having that nurse, like, they made this experience something that honestly was awful at first, but turned amazing because of that. While my doctor was putting in the catheter, she did notice that my cervix is a little bit tilted, so she kind of had to go in at a different angle than usual. And not only was it tilted, but it was a little bit tighter, so she was not able to use the normal size catheter. She tried, oh my god, she tried that damn catheter probably like 3 times. So the most excruciating pain I've ever been through, and I had to experience it 3 times times, okay? And then she decided she was gonna try a smaller one. So she went in with a smaller one. Finally it worked. It was just as painful. The size of it made no difference. It was just as freaking painful. The best way that I can describe it is it literally is like a period cramp, but it's like the worst period cramp you've ever felt, and it's like electricity at the same time all over your uterus, all over your pelvic area. Like, it was rough. But once she finally got the catheter in, I will say that the catheter was the worst part. I did not feel her blow up the balloon. I did not feel that, and I did not feel the dye going in either. And once the catheter was in and the balloon was blown up and they put the dye in, I would say that the dye took about 10 seconds to flow through, and then all I hear is like a pop noise, just pop, because the balloon like flew out. It like flew out of my cervix because my left tube is extremely clogged, and it is so clogged that there was like intense pressure on it, and so the pressure from the tube like took the balloon and basically spit it out. But the good news is, even though my left tube is incredibly clogged, my right tube is not. Like, the ink just shot straight through my right tube, which was so nice to see, because I have always felt like my right tube was the problem, because whenever I ovulate or I have my period, I get very intense cramping on that side of my body, like near my right tube, versus on my left tube I don't feel anything. So now I'm realizing, okay, maybe I'm feeling those symptoms because that tube isn't clogged, versus I'm not feeling anything over here because it is clogged. So a lot of times when you have a clogged tube, your doctors will want to go in and try to flush them out as much as they can, but I was in such intense pain, and my doctor was literally like, I do not want to torture you. That is not the point of this procedure. I do not want to put you in any more pain. I know this is really painful for you, and part of the reason is because I have that blocked tube. So she's like, we are not going to do anything else as far as this goes today. She said that she wants us to go home this cycle, and she wants us to try one more time naturally. A fun fact to know is when you get an HSG, you are actually more fertile for 3 months following. And even though I do have a blocked tube, she said it is still 100% possible for us to conceive, because technically you only need one tube in order to conceive a baby. So this month the game plan is to baby dance and, you know, do what we're doing, like try to conceive the same way we always have. We are going to try a couple different things out. I got an Anito fertility monitoring system, as well as we ordered a Frida fertility like at home insemination kit, which comes with like 2 rounds of that. So we are going to try that 2 different times this month. And then also we have been stressing the fact that I just need to stop being so stressed out. I am stressed out and overwhelmed, and I overwork myself a lot. And this month I've been trying to like stress the importance of not doing that. And she said that this month, if we do conceive and I get a positive pregnancy test, literally as soon as I get one, she wants me to call in, because she needs me to come in so she can monitor it and make sure that it's where it needs to be, because I have had a miscarriage before, and I've also had a chemical pregnancy, so she wants to get on top of it before we get, you know, too far into it. If I don't conceive this month, then she wants me to come in on the 15th of next month, and we will be starting a round of letrozole, and we will be doing a medicated cycle. So either way, there will be good news on either side. If I get pregnant, obviously that'll be amazing, but if I do not, it'll be nice that we already have a backup plan of doing a medicated cycle. So that is the procedure. Those were my results. So now, just like how I'm feeling now that the procedure is over, in about 2 hours, and I am still cramping pretty bad. But like I said, I have always had very bad cramps. It's just in my nature to have extremely painful, extremely bad cramps. So I was expecting to kind of feel kind of icky for the rest of the day, but I should feel better by tomorrow. Mentally, I am feeling kind of like a weight taken off of myself, because it's nice anytime you go to an appointment and you get answers. I cannot tell you, the last couple of times we've gone, it's like I got answers, but it was more so like everything looks good, with the exception of like, you know, the PCOS, the pre-diabetes, but like everything looks good. And hearing everything looks good but then not being able to conceive, it kind of almost feels worse than like hearing, no, something's wrong and we need to fix it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but hearing that things are good but then nothing's happening and it's been almost 2 years, like, it's just frustrating. Like, it's just frustrating, to be honest. So it was nice to know that, you know, there's things that aren't where they should be, but there's things that we can do to help those things. So mentally I am feeling just like a little bit more clarity than I was last week, let's say. So that was my HSG experience. It was just as painful as everybody said it would be, but I had a clogged tube. So if you don't have a blocked tube, I feel like there's possibility that maybe it won't hurt as much as it hurt me. It was just not a good time for me. Thank you guys so much for joining me again. I am so excited to be going on this fertility journey with you guys. I know when I first started this journey, it felt like I couldn't find anybody to relate to, because I know even though there is a really big community of women on the internet these days who talk about infertility and talk about trying to conceive, it still almost feels like sometimes it's a little bit taboo and like people are a little bit more scared to talk about it. I've especially noticed that in the Black community, that I feel like Black women, I don't know if it's because we just have like a pride thing and like we don't want to talk about it, but I feel like there's not enough representation for women of color in this community. And I want people to know that it is okay to talk about the things that you go through, and I think talking about them makes you feel better, because for me it has made me feel so much better. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for all your support. It means so much to me. Mwah! Bye guys.